What's up guys, my name's Timbo and today we're talking about The Last of Us. Despite it not releasing until 2013, The Last of Us began development in 2009, right after Naughty Dog shipped Uncharted 2 Among Thieves. For the first time ever, the development studio split into two teams. One team led by Amy Hennig began creating Uncharted 3, while another team led by Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann began working on a new IP, that new IP eventually turning into The Last of Us. While Uncharted 3 was critically acclaimed and received multiple Game of the Year awards in 2011, reception for The Last of Us was on a completely different level, being called things like a masterpiece, the most riveting, emotionally resonant story-driven epic of the console generation, a beacon of hope for the survival horror genre, and Naughty Dog's finest moment. To this day, The Last of Us stands as one of the greatest games of all time, being praised mainly for its character development, story, subtext, visual and sound design, and depiction of female characters. In all honesty, the only negative thing I've ever heard about this game is the fact that the friendly AI can be a little goofy at times.
Why are you running?
While the gameplay in The Last of Us isn't bad or anything, the story is definitely its strongest asset, and in today's video we're gonna run through it beat for beat. Despite the highly anticipated Part 2 being delayed indefinitely due to the coronavirus, which is kinda ironic if you start to think about it, I'm still gonna put this out here now and give you guys a refresher. While this video can be viewed by those who haven't played The Last of Us, as always it won't replace the experience you'll get playing through the game yourself. And in a game like this with so many little details, I highly recommend you experience this for yourself if you can. If you enjoy this video and find it helpful, leaving a like is greatly appreciated. And for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe. The Last of Us begins with a young girl named Sarah sleeping at her home in Austin, Texas. Her father Joel comes in to join her on the couch. Sarah gives her dad a new watch for his birthday, and after falling asleep again, Joel brings Sarah to her room and tucks her in. Sarah is woken up by a phone call, and after roaming throughout the house, is unable to find Joel anywhere. She sees an explosion out in the distance, police cars are racing by her home, and Joel's little brother Tommy keeps blowing up his phone that hilariously says engage instead of unlock. Joel eventually returns to the house and is forced to shoot his neighbor in the face after he comes crashing through their window. The two meet up with Tommy and get in his truck, trying to escape the ongoing pandemic. After driving all over the place, the car is violently smashed into. Joel awakes and grabs Sarah with Tommy leading the way. As they run, the town has completely fallen into madness, with explosions and confusion and chaos everywhere. The three are able to escape through a nearby alley until Tommy urges Joel to take Sarah away while he holds off the infected. Joel reluctantly does just that, running into a soldier posted at the perimeter. The soldier talks to his commanding officer, clearly getting orders that aren't too positive. After resisting for a moment, the soldier turns the gun on Joel and Sarah. And you know, normally I wouldn't succumb my viewers to this kind of torture, but since I had to sit through this again to get footage for this video, so do you.
Please don't. Oh no. Sarah. Move your hands, babe. I know, baby, I know. God. Listen to me, I know this hurts, baby. You're gonna be okay, baby. Stay with me. All right, I'm gonna pick you up. I know, baby, I know it hurts. Come on, baby, please. I know, baby, I know. Sarah. Baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Don't do this to me, baby. Come on. No. No. No, no, please. Please don't. Please.
Hey, who left this bowl of onions here?
The game now jumps 20 years later into the year 2033. While the game never says for sure, much later in the story Joel mentions that he had Sarah at a very young age, being the reason why he didn't attend college. With that being said, we can guess Joel is now in his mid to late 40s from this point forward, in case you were curious. Over the last 20 years, the world has been decimated by the infection. Survivors live in heavily policed quarantine zones, independent settlements, and nomadic groups. In the world of The Last of Us, the infection that caused the outbreak is known as the cordyceps fungus. Unlike a lot of zombie apocalypse type games, the infection here is actually a real thing, and how it mutates and spreads in the game is exactly how it looks and functions in real life. Now, the cordyceps fungus only affects insects and other arthropods, but in The Last of Us, this infection has spread to humans. Not only did the fungus play a lot into the game's breathtaking visual design, but its realistic tangibility made stagnant zombie games fresh again. These days, Joel works as a smuggler with his partner Tess in a quarantine zone in Boston, Massachusetts. After making a deal to get some ration cards, Tess was jumped by two men. Tess tells Joel that the men were sent by a man named Robert, a black market dealer who stole a weapon cache from Joel. The two set off after Robert, eventually cornering him in his warehouse and taking him down. Before killing him, Robert informs Tess and Joel that he traded the guns to a rebel militia group called the Fireflies. The Fireflies are a group that formed shortly after the outbreak. They revolt against military oppression in numerous quarantine zones in the hopes of restoring the US government, and are one of the few organized groups still searching for a vaccine to the cordyceps infection. Joel and Tess run into Marlene, the leader of the Fireflies, which is extremely convenient. Marlene promises to double their cash in return for one small favor. That small favor being to have them smuggle a teenage girl named Ellie out of the quarantine zone, delivering her to a small group of Fireflies hiding in the Massachusetts State House. While Joel and especially Ellie are reluctant to do this, Marlene's current physical state leaves her in no condition to do the job herself. Plus, she uses her relationship with Tommy, who became a Firefly at one point, as leverage. While Marlene goes to verify the weapons with Tess, Joel and Ellie head out to a hideout near the North Tunnel. Their first interactions are uncomfortable, to say the least. Both Joel and Ellie are pretty standoffish, but they eventually make it to their destination and rest before Tess arrives.
Your watch is broken.
Tess soon meets up with Joel and Ellie, and the three head out at night in an attempt to sneak by the patrols. However, this doesn't last very long as they're quickly caught. Just before one of the guards scans Ellie, she stabs him in the leg. Joel and Tess retaliate by killing the other guard. The reason why Ellie reacted the way she did is revealed soon after.
Look.
Jesus Christ. Marlene set us up? Why the hell are we smuggling an infected girl?
I'm not infected.
No? Just lying?
I can explain.
You better explain fast.
Look at this.
I don't care how you got infected.
It's 3 weeks old.
No, everyone turns within 2 days, so you stop bullshitting.
It's 3 weeks. I swear. Why would she set you up?
Despite more trucks coming in as backup, the three are able to escape out of the quarantine zone. After Ellie tells Tess that the Fireflies hope her immunity will be the key. Whoa, that's a lot of words. After Ellie tells Tess that the Fireflies hope her immunity will be the key to finding a cure, Joel tries to convince Tess to turn back, but she continues on with the plan of giving Ellie to the Fireflies. After fighting through hordes of infected on the outskirts of what used to be Boston and having a somewhat nice moment together, the trio makes it to the State House, only to find that the Fireflies meant to escort Ellie, they did. This event causes Tess to fall into disarray, urging Joel to continue the journey and deliver Ellie himself to the Fireflies lab out west. And as you can expect, Joel ain't having any of this.
Guess what? We're shitty people, Joel. It's been that way for a long time.
No, we are survivors.
This is our chance.
It is over, Tess! Now, we tried. Let's just go home.
It's at this point when Tess tells Joel that she was infected a few hours ago on their way to the State House. In a last-ditch effort, she pleads with Joel to take Ellie to Tommy, hoping that his previous connections with the Fireflies would help give them the location of the lab. Believing in Ellie's importance to the continuation of the human race, she sacrifices herself against pursuing soldiers so that Joel and Ellie can escape. Rip Tess. After getting past the soldiers and some infected, Joel lays down some of the Southern law with Ellie, telling her to never bring up Tess again and to, quote, keep our histories to ourselves. Joel then says he knows someone who lives a few miles north of their current location that owes him a few favors and hopes he can get them a car. Joel and Ellie approach the town Lincoln to find it riddled with death traps and paranoid notes left everywhere. One of these traps snags Joel on the foot, resulting in him having to fight off infected upside down. This is when Joel's beforehand mentioned friend Bill enters the picture. Bill is one of the game's more interesting characters, I guess. Despite his angry and strict exterior, Bill is revealed to be very paranoid and kinda quirky. This can be seen contextually by all of the notes he leaves himself scattered around town, and the fact that he plays chess with himself.
Hey, Bobby Fischer, don't touch anything on that board.
Bobby, what?
Just let it go.
Either way, Bill helps Joel and Ellie head over to Lincoln High School to find a working car battery. After getting past dozens of infected, Bill discovers that the car is empty. On their way out of the school, the group encounters the game's first boss battle, if you will. So far, we've seen runners in the blind, echolocation using clickers. But now it's time to face bloaters, which is a really strange name if you ask me. These enemies fit into the story of The Last of Us quite well, as the length of their infection translates to the physical state they're in. Not all infected apparently fully transform over time, but typically speaking, first you're a runner, then you become a clicker, after that a bloater, and then finally, you're just a full-on plant. The infection itself can be spread through bodily fluids, most commonly done through a bite, but these fungal plants that people become are often the cause of these spores floating around, as inhaling them can infect someone too. After killing the bloater, Joel, Ellie, and Bill, I don't know why I said Bill like that, escape the school and find shelter in a nearby house. In the middle of an argument, Joel and Bill discover a corpse hanging there.
What, you know this guy or something?
Frank,
Who the hell's Frank?
he was my partner. He's the only idiot that would wear a shirt like that.
Bill cuts down Frank and finds bite marks all over his body, assuming he killed himself to avoid turning. In a slightly more positive turn of events, Ellie finds a car in the garage with a working battery, meaning Bill's partner Frank must have already stolen it from the school. After getting the car working, the three escape Lincoln unharmed. Once the coast is clear, Bill tells Ellie to stop driving. Despite Joel's attempt to open Bill up, Bill tells Joel that they're square into, well,
And get the fuck out of my town.
while Bill's time in the game is short, I feel like he's a pretty significant character. I don't know if it was the intent, but I've always seen Bill's obsession with keeping his town isolated and on lockdown as an illustration of his more inner restriction of letting people get close to him again out of fear of getting hurt. Throughout their time together, Bill is constantly telling Joel that helping out Ellie is going to get him killed and that he's stupid for smuggling her. Or as he puts it in the game, like this.
Once upon a time, I had somebody that I cared about. A partner. Somebody I had to look after. And in this world, that sort of shit's good for one thing: getting you killed.
Either way, Joel and Ellie continue on their car ride together, and in one of the funnier parts of the game, Ellie reveals to Joel that she stole some of Bill's comic books. When asked what else she took from him, Ellie pulls out a pornographic magazine, which hints at the fact that Bill's partner might be a different type of partner than we originally thought.
Light on the reading, but it's got some interesting photos.
Now, Ellie, that ain't for kids.
Whoa! How the hell would he even walk around with that thing?
Get rid of
Look,
that.
hold your horses. I want to see what all the fuss is about. Oh, why are these all stuck together? Abort! Abort! Abort!
Driving to Tommy's, Joel reroutes into Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, due to a blockade of cars stopping his path. A man soon walks out on the road crying for help, but Joel doesn't fall for any of it. Ramming into the man reveals a massive ambush, causing Joel to crash the car into a small grocery store, consequently trapping him and Ellie in the city. The two immediately head towards a large bridge, hoping it will be a way out of Pittsburgh. However, this task isn't as easy as it might seem, as the city is crawling with hunters, infected, and a Humvee that will shoot them on sight. On their way, Joel and Ellie come across the abandoned Hotel Grand. A hunter takes Joel by surprise and tries to drown him in a small pool of water. Just as he's about to suffocate Joel, Ellie comes to the rescue and uses a gun for the first time. While Joel still doesn't want Ellie to carry a gun after this event, he quickly realizes that he'd be better off letting Ellie arm herself, teaching her to hold a sniper rifle and eventually giving her a small handgun of her own. After running into the Humvee again, Joel and Ellie rush into the side of a building, where they're met by two brothers named Sam and Henry. With their shared desire to escape Pittsburgh, they decide to work together. That night during their escape, Sam and Henry opt to leave Joel behind after a ladder collapses on their path. This leaves Joel and Ellie back on their own, who are able to outrun the Humvee and eventually decide to jump off the bridge. Since Ellie doesn't know how to swim, Joel latches onto her and the two get rammed into a rock. Joel wakes up to find himself and Ellie alive on the riverbank, along with Sam and Henry. Henry is glad that Joel survived, but Joel is less than happy that the brothers left him and Ellie to die in the city. Henry tells Joel he jumped in the water and saved them, and after defusing the situation, the group heads into the sewers, believing it will lead them straight to the nearby radio tower. As they move around inside, they not only encounter plenty of infected, but find various notes from a man named Ish, as well as evidence that an entire community must have once lived in this sewer not too long ago. After one last confrontation with plenty of infected, as you can see here that Timbo is in fact good at video games. Not gonna lie, I had just gotten the Platinum Trophy for all 3 Uncharted games of the Nathan Drake collection, beating them on crushing before this. So my Naughty Dog skills were at an all-time high while filming this. I mean, look, the frickin' Elgato glitches out because I'm so beastly. Once outside and discovering something very unfortunate.
Look at this.
Oh, are you fucking kidding me?
They head into the nearby neighborhood, where they are ambushed by a sniper. After Joel reaches the house and kills the sniper, he notices more hunters emerging from the woodwork. The Humvee from Pittsburgh even comes to make an appearance. How it got there, I don't know, it can frickin' fly. After dispatching all of them, the noise attracts an enormous herd of infected, prompting them to slip through a gap in a nearby wooden fence, escaping the suburbs. The group finally reaches the tower, where they have a temporary reprieve. With Joel and Henry goofing around about motorcycles, Ellie decides to check in on Sam. Sam acts more somber than usual, asking Ellie deep questions about her fears and her opinions over whether the infected are still people, just without control over their bodies, or if their soul moves on to heaven. Ellie tells Sam she thinks the infected are no longer people, but doesn't know for sure. After she leaves to go to bed, Sam is left in the room by himself again, pulling up his pant leg to reveal an infected scratch. The next morning, Ellie wakes up to Henry cooking breakfast. He tells her to go wake Sam up, and in one of the darkest moments in this game, well, you can just see for yourself.
Sam!
What the hell? Shit, he's turning! That's my fucking brother! Screw it!
Shit!
Ellie? Ellie, are you alright?
Oh my god.
Sam?
Oh no.
Sam? Henry? Ellie, stay there. Henry? What have you done? I'm gonna get that gun from you, okay? Oh, okay, easy.
This is your fault.
This is nobody's fault, Henry.
It's all your fault.
Henry! Henry, no!
Oh my god.
Would you get out of here?
It's now fall, and Joel and Ellie are in Wyoming on their way to see Tommy. While walking there, Joel mentions that the last time he saw his brother, Tommy told him, "I never want to see your goddamn face again." They eventually reach the closed gate of a power plant, and after being held at gunpoint, are recognized and welcomed in by Tommy. Tommy shows Joel around his self-sustained settlement, also introducing Joel to Maria, his wife. As he does this, Tommy claims he went back to Texas and grabbed something for Joel while he was there. Tommy tries giving a photograph of Sarah to Joel, but Joel tells Tommy to keep it. In private, Joel tells Tommy about Ellie's immunity and asks him to bring her to the Fireflies. Tommy initially refuses, but after the settlement gets attacked by bandits, he agrees to take Joel off Ellie's hands. This prompts Ellie to run away, taking one of the horses and heading off into the woods. Joel and Tommy follow after her, finding her near a local ranch house. Joel walks in on Ellie reading someone's diary, making fun of the fact that back then girls only had to worry about boys and what shirt goes with which skirt. Ellie, being 14, if you haven't done the math by now, was born 6 years after Sarah's death, only ever knowing the world post-outbreak. Ellie confronts Joel about him dumping her on Tommy, bringing up some pretty touchy subjects.
Not her, you know.
What?
Maria told me about Sarah.
Ellie?
And
You are treading on some mighty thin ice here.
I'm sorry about your daughter, Joel, but I have lost people too.
You have no idea what loss is.
Everyone I have cared for has either died or left me. Everyone fucking except for you. So don't tell me that I would be safer with someone else, because the truth is I would just be more scared.
You're right. You're not my daughter. And I sure as hell ain't your dad.
Tommy barges in the room, telling the two that more bandits arrived at the ranch house. After taking them to Pound Town, the three head back. But Joel has a change of heart and decides to take Ellie himself. Tommy informs Joel that the Fireflies are in the science building of the University of Eastern Colorado, and Joel says his goodbyes. Joel and Ellie go around campus looking for the science building on Callus, the name Ellie gave their horse since Joel forgot to ask Tommy before they left, which he apparently thinks is a terrible name for a horse. While riding, Joel starts to share more about his past, how he wanted to be a singer, how he never went to college, and teaching her the rules of football.
What do you want?
Well, when I was a kid, I used to want to be a singer.
Shut up.
No, serious.
Sing something.
No.
Come on, I won't laugh.
I don't think so.
Joel, please.
While they run into some monkeys and firefly symbols, they still haven't found any other people. As they enter the empty science building, they learn that the fireflies had left in a hurry for unknown reasons. Joel and Ellie discovered the fireflies were trying to find a cure by experimenting on the monkeys, but after that failed, they decided to continue their research in Salt Lake City. Just as they discover this, a group of looters ambushes them. Joel and Ellie make their way back out of the building, killing the looters one by one until one of them bursts through the door, sending Joel over a balcony, causing him to be impaled by a piece of rebar sticking out from the ground. Ellie helps Joel up and works to protect both of them.
Swear to God, I get you out of this. You're so singing for me.
You wish.
Uncertain that Joel will survive, Ellie gets them both on the horse and leaves the university. Assuming they're safe, Joel slumps and falls off Callus, passing out cold. Uncertain of Joel's fate, we now open in winter, where Ellie is seen hunting a rabbit and then a deer. After tracking down the deer's blood trail, she's confronted by two strangers named David and James. David surprisingly played by Nolan North, the same voice as Nathan Drake among many other things. They offer to trade with her for the meat, and Ellie says if they have medicine, she'll give them the entire deer. While waiting for James to return with penicillin, Ellie and David are cornered by a big group of infected. Once they're all dealt with, David sits down with Ellie and things begin to turn a little more sinister. He tells her how a bunch of his men had just been killed by a crazy man traveling with a little girl. Realizing David isn't safe to be around, Ellie runs back to an abandoned house, where Joel is feverish. She gives Joel the medicine and then lays down next to him. The next morning, Ellie wakes up hearing bandits outside. Realizing they tracked her, and in order to draw them away from Joel, she mounts her horse and rides off. This works for a time, but Callus is eventually shot and killed, forcing Ellie to hide in an abandoned resort. As she tries to leave, David sneaks up behind Ellie and chokes her until she passes out. Ellie then wakes up in a cage, seeing James cutting the limbs off of a human corpse. David comes in telling Ellie that he doesn't want to kill her. David then hints at his true intentions, which are a little bit too rapey for Ellie's liking, so she breaks David's finger. At this time, Joel wakes up and realizes Ellie is gone. Despite still being badly injured, Joel realizes he still has plenty of his grisly southern pride and gusto, so he goes outside in the cold after her. Sometime later, David and James come back and hold down Ellie on a table to kill her for food. Before they do so, Ellie tells David she's infected. This distracts him enough for Ellie to grab David's knife and kill James with it, running outside into the snowstorm. While this works for a time, David ends up finding Ellie in a restaurant. After fighting, the two fall unconscious. Outside, Joel captures two of David's men and goes completely psycho, torturing them until they tell him where Ellie is. While the restaurant catches on fire and begins to burn, Joel comes by and is drawn to the scene. Ellie and David both slowly wake up, with David getting the upper hand over her. Ellie reaches out for David's machete and is able to slash his arm with it. After knocking him off her, Ellie repeatedly hacks at his face in a rage until Joel arrives and pulls her off. I could be wrong, but I believe this is also the first time Joel calls Ellie baby girl, which is something he called Sarah often.
You're not baby girl.
He tried to.
Oh, baby girl. It's okay. It's okay.
Joel.
It's okay.
The game flashes forward to spring now. While the two seem to have a stronger bond, Ellie still appears visibly shaken by what happened in the winter, not really engaging in a lot of Joel's side conversations. Making their way through a bus station, Ellie gets distracted while getting a ladder for Joel. Joel climbs up and runs after her, only to find giraffes wandering around the now deserted city. It might be hard to show in a video like this, but this moment stands as one of the most recognizable and beautiful instances in the game. As they stand and watch the giraffes, Joel tells Ellie that they don't need to do this. They can forget everything and go back to Tommy's. However, Ellie is determined to finish what they started, stating that everything they've been through can't be for nothing. They go past a large number of medical tents where Joel comments about the first few months of the infection. Ellie then tells Joel she stole something from Maria back at the dam and wants him to have it. Once again, someone tries to give Joel the picture of him and Sarah, and this time, he accepts it. They then make their way through an underground tunnel that's been flooded. As they try to navigate through it, mind you, Joel still, somehow, hasn't taught Ellie how to swim, a bus collapses and sends both of them underwater. Joel grabs Ellie and, despite being dragged by the violent current, brings her to the surface. Realizing she's not breathing, Joel performs CPR on her but is stopped by a soldier who knocks Joel out cold. Joel wakes up in a hospital bed to find Marlene and the Fireflies with him. Joel asks to see Ellie, but Marlene says she's already being prepped for surgery. Marlene tells Joel that Ellie's brain somehow mutated the cordyceps infection, meaning they could use her brain to reverse engineer a vaccine. Joel is quick to realize that doing that would kill Ellie, so he tells Marlene to find someone else. Marlene tries to explain how hard this is on her too, as she promised Ellie's mom Anna to protect her. But Marlene feels as if she has no choice. With Joel resisting, Marlene orders her guard to escort Joel out of the hospital. It's this next part that is widely discussed by many people. Does Joel make the right choice here, or does he just become the villain of his own story? While he probably doesn't make the morally correct choice, he decides that living in an infection-free world, having lost another daughter, isn't a world worth living in. The world took something from Joel, so it's Joel's turn to take something from the world. And if you think about it, Sarah wasn't killed by the infection. She was killed by the military, by man. I haven't seen many people bring this up, but maybe Joel knows that ridding the world of the virus isn't gonna make everything perfect. Joel might not be an exception to that rule, but throughout the game we've seen human beings be just as evil as the infected, if not more. Whether you agree with Joel's choice in the end or not, this ending is definitely not the one you're expecting, and it represents the flawed and broken human being we all are much more accurately than most black and white stories do. Joel turns on the guard and, after getting the location of where the surgery is being held, kills him in cold blood. The gunshots alert all the nearby guards. After getting past them, or killing all of them, Joel reaches the operating room. At this moment, you don't have to kill all the doctors, but the game forces you to at least kill the head surgeon before grabbing Ellie. Once he does this, Joel rushes out of the hospital as guards yell at him to stop. Joel manages to reach an elevator before the guards catch him. Entering the parking garage, Joel is confronted once again by Marlene, who tells Joel that he can still do the right thing, believing this fate is better than letting Ellie be free to most likely be raped, murdered, or torn apart by clickers. Joel disregards this and tells Marlene that that is not for her to decide. The camera then cuts to Joel driving and Ellie waking up in the back seat. When Ellie asks what happened, Joel lies to her, saying there are dozens out there who are immune. He tells Ellie that they found the Fireflies, but have since stopped looking for a cure. After he says this, the camera cuts back into the parking garage, showing Joel shoot Marlene and placing Ellie in the back of the truck. On the ground bleeding, Marlene pleads for her to be let go, but Joel only has this to say:
You just come after her.
Joel and Ellie return to Tommy's settlement. While walking the rest of the way, Joel remarks that Ellie and Sarah would have been great friends, and Ellie agrees. Once they get in view of the settlement, Ellie tells Joel that when she was bitten, she was with her friend named Riley. She feels bad having to watch Riley turn while she was spared, and then had to deal with the deaths of Tess and Sam in a similar way. Ellie can't help but feel guilty knowing she survives despite being bitten, while others didn't. And then, this happens.
I struggled for a long time with surviving. And no matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
And guys, that is the entire story of The Last of Us explained from beginning to end. 7 whole years later, and we're still waiting to see what happens next. Hopefully this real world pandemic can end soon so we can finally get those answers. Whenever part 2 does come out, you can be sure to see me covered in a similar video right here on this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching and making it to the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to subscribe. God bless you guys, and as always, I'll see you in the next one.